Hello, hello, hello. Rebecca here. So glad to be here with you. I'm so excited to share this video with you. This is a bit of a divergence from the content that I typically produce, and yet I was so incredibly excited to make this video. I know that this is something that likely will be a continued conversation down the road. So what's interesting is this theme came to me, or I was presenting this theme to you many months ago when I did the video, What Does a Balanced Masculine Man Look Like? And it was a bit of a vulnerable moment for me because I felt that there was some part of me that believed that I should know and I didn't know. And that made me feel a little bit insecure. And so the video was up for a while and then I took it down for a little bit. It is back now because finally there's some validation that I'm not the only one asking that question. And it was so amazing to see not one, but two men discussing this topic. And I had a long drive this weekend to go visit family and plenty of time to watch this very long video, not once, but twice. I was so excited about it. I had to go back and take notes because this is a conversation I want to share with you. And I think it's a conversation that we all should start to think about and start to engage in, because luckily we are in a defining moment where we get to redefine what good looks like, not just for the man, but for the woman, as well as our relationship together. So today we're going to focus primarily on what does a good man look like. I will review in detail the notes that I took from this video. I will link the video below and offer some of my thoughts and suggestions as to what good might look like. And I would love to hear what your thoughts are as well. So I will say, like I mentioned, the first video I created was very much from a vulnerable place. It was very much just asking questions and maybe offering a few thoughts on what it felt like good would look like to me. So I want to preface this with, this is a recap of the video that I watched. I will do my best to point out where I'm directly quoting them, but just know as a disclaimer, as a citation for this entire video, I should credit Chris Williamson and Tom Bayou for their conversation. So apologies if I say either of your names wrong, but I really want to be clear that this is an opportunity for us all to engage in a conversation and to bring our thoughts to the table and to help facilitate defining new expectations or new opportunities, new potentials, and possibly even out of that will arise new role models, which is one of the things that we'll discuss. So I will clarify that my initial thoughts of the video were a little bit harsh relative to my second pass. And there are a couple times in the video where it said that men just want sex. And that is hard for me as a woman. And I, again, will preface this as my response is always going to be somewhat, I don't want to say tainted, but it is filtered through my perception and my experiences. And I recognize that I do not represent all women, nor do the men that I have encountered represent all men. So I am in no way overgeneralizing. And I will say that when they say men just want sex, that triggers a little something in me where I recognize that I have felt historically used. And so that felt a little bit triggering. But the beautiful thing is, as I went through and watched it again and took more detailed notes and listened more carefully, it was clear that sex is honored and respected and seen as a sacred act by both of the men in this video. So I don't feel that in any way that they were necessarily viewing women as just the vehicle to obtain the thing that they are seeking, but rather genuinely asking the question, how do we mend this relationship? And so the thumbnail, if you click on the video, you'll see it says 50% of men are sexless. And I was, of course, enticed to click on that because my initial response was, well, of course, I know why. But again, I recognize my egoic initial response versus my more balanced and centered and grounded and humble or human aspect that wants to say, let's ask some questions. Let's really be open to the possibilities of why this may exist. And the more I think about it, the more nuanced the response is. And I certainly have come to realize that after digging in. So I initially was concerned that there was some superficiality in this video, but really after digging in, I found some very significant nuggets and more depth than I saw initially. So if you are a woman watching this video, I would suggest watching with an open mind and being compassionate and trying to see their side, right? Trying to be understanding. And again, we'll get to that later, but I do think that that is one of the most significant pieces that are missing in the relationship today between men and women. So, like I said, my initial thought was, of course, I know why 50% of men are sexless. And of course, I also do have to preface that that was an estimation made by Chris Williamson based on some pretty significant data. I did see the chart that he posted in a different video from Tinder, where men who were not having sex, and it may have even been both sexes, between age 18 and 30 had risen from 10% to 30% in 2018. Now, it is reasonable to suspect, considering that trajectory, pre-COVID versus post-COVID numbers, we do know that social anxiety, social isolation has increased due to COVID. So to speculate that 50% of men now today between the ages of 18 and 30 likely have not had sex within the last year is a reasonable estimation, but it has not been validated. So we'll just say that. And then jumping into sort of my initial perception, and I will clarify that after watching this and going through this, that has changed a bit. But of course, my initial thought was, well, because women are tired of the BS. That there's a lot of us who have experienced, and I, of course, am outside of this age range, but there is a lot of us who have experienced very unhealthy relationships, and we're tired of the way we have been treated, right? So, like I said, that's my initial response. Part of that still stands, and I'll get into the other reasons, the supplemental reasons that I can now see that are also likely contributing to this, as well as some suggestions for those who are struggling with this, because I do have empathy for the men who are in this situation. And the society that we're all living in today is very, very challenging, especially for those who are in this age. I will also preface this with, I have a son who is 16 years old. And so I am a mother of a son, and I did very much I was very surprised when I first realized the difference in what I expected a man to be like versus what my little boy was like. And the more I dig into this topic, the more I realize it wasn't just my son, that generally men are soft. There is a core, snuggly little bunny that wants nothing but love. And yet society has, or the media has told us that the tough guy or the jerk is most attractive. And I'm not suggesting one or the other, but I will say to any of the women who watch this, be open-minded to the fact that there is a soft, gooey inner core of a lover inside of that tough outer shell, and having compassion for men, being willing to nurture them, understanding that it is partially our role to hold space for that and to nurture that, is something that I feel that's likely been lost over time through social conditioning. Again, we'll talk more about that. So let's get into some of the important details. Like I said, my initial response is that women were fed up with the BS. We're done with the days of the dickhead, right? We're just tired of the jerk mentality. And there has been a significant prevalence of narcissism and an increasing awareness of narcissistic tendencies that has grown and likely is part of what we're dealing with here. Some of the challenges that Chris and Tom define are, one, a low bar for sex, which I think directly ties into my being fed up theory, that there are some of us who have said enough is enough, we're not doing this anymore. I would rather be single than deal with immaturity and games and being used and being manipulated. I would rather be alone than tolerate BS. And that is just a portion of us who are reaching that point. There are still likely in the younger, less experienced age groups, women who feel that there's no other option than to settle for something less than what they deserve. So what Chris and Tom are pointing to here is women who are willing to tolerate BS, who are willing to say, well, if I can't get what I'm hoping for, at least I can settle for this guy who, you know, it at least pays me a little bit of attention. So that's the low bar for sex that they're referencing. The second point that they call out is that there are no role models, that there are no manly men to look up to, a lack of fathers in the home, as well as lacking a vision of what good looks like. And I think that that goes for both sides, that even for us as women, when we encounter a less than ideal relationship, we have not been shown how to address that and how to respectfully, kindly, and effectively ask for what we need, that there is a communication gap, and that has not been modeled for us. It has not been modeled for us how to bridge that gap. And I love that there is a couple of different statements that were made. Was we need a vision of what good looks like, but also we need a vision, otherwise we wander and we may even die. Whereas we have to have something to build towards, otherwise we're drifting. All right, so another, and the third, probably the most important point to Tom Bayou, was that there are no coming of age rituals. And again, I think this applies to both sexes, that there are no major demarcations in our life, no major milestones that signify a shift in our life. And as we know, our self-concept, we live from our self-concept. Our psychology requires that we align to our beliefs about ourselves. And so when there is no significant demarcation to say that I have gone from a teen to an adult, I have gone from a boy to a man, I have gone from a girl to a woman, that this can create sort of a gray area where we are uncertain of how we behave. And again, lacking that role model who's there to teach us how we shift from one to the other is directly connected to the struggles that we are all seeing on both sides. That it facilitates new behavior when we have a new self-concept, and to not have that conscious shift, again, sort of leaves us in a questioning state of how do we behave in this moment. Right. I would agree that women significantly lack this as well, and that it would behoove us all to start to establish these things. I also would add, and if you're part of this channel and this family, you know that there is a subtle message sent through society, through marketing, through parenting or lack thereof, of a subtle message of not enoughness, where we feel that if you don't have the car, if you don't have the house, if you don't have the job, right, if you don't have the looks, if you don't have the money, if you don't have the status, that's something that Chris referenced, if you don't have the product that they're marketing, if you don't have the body that they're selling, then there's something wrong with you. And it is a very subversive belief. It lives in our subconscious, which kind of means in our rearview mirror, behind our blind spot. And it causes a lack of confidence. It's a societal message that we are defined by these external things instead of defined by our own internal beliefs and our own self-concept. And that can lead to a loss of confidence, or a lack of ever developing the confidence, that we lose touch with our inherent value and worth. And as you know, in the psychology world, this is typically defined as complex trauma, but I'm shying away from that term. It really is more about conditioning and programming than the big T word that kind of causes everybody to say, I don't have trauma. Right? This lack of self-confidence, the responses are directly correlated to the trauma responses that we see in complex trauma. So Chris's theory Chris's theory as to why so many men are sexless today, or young adults are not having sex, is that they are numbed and sedated. I would add to the lack of confidence precedes this feeling of inferiority or not enoughness, or lacking something to offer, then causes them to shrink back, to play small, and to worry about what they have to offer. And then from there, you require coping mechanisms like numbing out and sedating yourself. And of course, the mechanisms to do this vary by person, but certainly pornography, video games, sports in the men's world, shopping, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, things of that nature can play a role as well. Distractions of any kind really are a coping mechanism. And this most commonly happens when we feel that we are facing a problem that is unsolvable, that there's no viable solution, there's no way out of this situation. And so we can feel trapped or in a prison of our own making, in this belief that there is no resolution. And was also hypothesized that this need for coping and numbing out, sedation, is driven by the fear of failure. And it is very, very true. And I can empathize with guys today, how difficult it must be to be expected to be the one to initiate the contact, to approach a woman, to suggest that they're interested, risking rejection. And if we're already dealing with this underlying subconscious belief that there's something wrong with me or I'm not enough, it's like pouring salt on a wound when we expect a man to go out and approach a woman and knowing that 9 times out of 10 they're going to be rejected, and the ego is wounded already. The man is fragile inside. Even though they have that tough outer shell, they're soft, and it does impact them. You add to that the fact that they're not allowed to acknowledge how they feel, or feelings are deemed wrong and bad, and if there's something wrong with you if you respond with emotion, and to stuff all of that down means that their cup is already full. They're going to spill over. They can only handle so much. And back in the day when we carried handkerchiefs, the woman would drop a handkerchief for them to say, hey, I'm interested, or it's safe for you to approach me. And I love that example. I love that habit or ritual, because it does allow both of us to save face, that I get to let you know I'm a little bit intrigued by you. I'd like to know you more without my rejection, as well as you being able to say, I saw it or I didn't, and maybe I'm interested, maybe I'm not, and I could keep walking, or I could pick it up and I could bring it to you. So I would love to see the return of the handkerchief. I don't know how we can do that digitally. Maybe a simple emoji would do, but that would be a great way to facilitate helping the men be less at risk as they brave this world. And it's interesting, because when I really ponder this, I would not want the initiator to change. And even when you look at our genetic conditioning, the way that we are built, I don't think that we could just flip the switch and say that the woman now should be in charge of approaching a man. That typically, and again, I'll get into generalizations here, which can be kind of dangerous, but typically the man's job is to pursue, to seek out. And I enjoy that pursuit, and that is something that I find initiates the chemistry, or starts to open that potential for chemistry. And if that's missing, there's a piece missing, that I don't want to be the powerful one in the relationship. I want my man to lead. I want my man to be the assertive one, even though as a business-minded woman, and even though I had spent a lot of my life in my masculine, I now recognize the importance of being in my feminine. I very much want to play that role in my relationship. So I would love to hear from you all if there's ideas on how we can help the man initiate conversations without risking rejection. I'm sure anyone who watches this now or in the future would be certainly grateful for that. Another point that was brought up was that men who approach are creepy. And certainly that has been an issue in my life. And I wanted to offer some more context around that conversation, that the way a man approaches you certainly determines their creep factor. If I am viewed as the milk carton that holds the milk, and all you want is to drink the milk, and you're just going to discard the carton, then I'm going to sense your intentions. If you are driven solely by getting sex, now let me clarify, I understand that this is your genetics, this is your DNA, this is your blueprint. You are driven towards getting sex, and I get that. But I will not be used solely for that. And I can sense it, right? We all can feel each other's vibe. There's no denying that. I can sense your intention. And so if you come up with a cheesy line, and I will preface it with, if you're charming and you start a conversation and you follow with more depth, a cheesy line isn't so bad. It's something to laugh at and have fun with. But if your sole intent is just to get laid, I will sense that and I will know that, and that amplifies your creep factor. If you genuinely are interested in having a long-term relationship with a person, if you generally want to get to know someone and you hope for an extended period of time of being in their energy, being in their space, then there is no rush. Just saying hi, or I like your shoes, or great pants, or let's not say nice butt, but you get my point. Just a nice little compliment is enough to start a conversation for me to say, hey, I see you, right? And if it's at the gym or the grocery store, recognize the time of day that you were there. Recognize that that's likely somewhere they go frequently, and come there more often. Be in their space, and don't feel like it has to all happen in that initial interaction. Another way, if it's not a space that you know that you're going to frequent visitly, or that you may not see them again, is being really vulnerable is very, very attractive. If you try to come off as the tough guy or the jerk, or you're trying to save face, if you're coming too much from an egoic place and not enough from a vulnerable place, that's going to really be a turnoff, right? That's going to make me be like, oh, that's kind of creepy. Like, thanks, no thanks. But if you are genuine, right? If you said to somebody, I walked around the corner and I saw you and you really struck me. I had to say hello and let you know you're beautiful. That's all I had to say. I hope you have a nice day. Take care. Maybe I'd like to see you again. I hope to see you again, something of that nature. That's not asking for anything. That's not expecting anything. It's just giving. And if that person is right for you, then there's going to be reciprocation, right? That energy will come back to you. And even just slipping somebody a note, here's my phone number, you can contact me if you'd like. It still is kind of that handkerchief moment where your rejection doesn't have to happen there and then. You can walk away after making that statement. And I personally would be a little bit flattered and shocked and not sure how to respond. And I would ponder how to handle that after you left, right? That's an opportunity for you to save face, to be able to walk away and not have to experience rejection in that moment. And it's also helpful for me because your walking away doesn't make me feel threatened. When you approach, there's going to be a little bit of a guard, but if you make it quick and you make it sincere and a little bit vulnerable and genuine, and then you walk away, I've been relieved of that need to defend myself by you giving me space so that I can feel safe and really work through, how did that interaction go? How do I feel about it? How do I want to respond? Right? But if you're in my face and you're asking for something and you want me to respond in that moment, I'm on guard. I don't know you, and you're being a bit too aggressive for my liking. So I'm just going to likely say, thank you, no, thank you, so that I can exit that situation pretty quickly. Now, of course, this all depends, are you in a social scene at night? Are you at the post office? Are you at the grocery store? Are you on an online dating app? These all are different factors that would require different responses. I'm open to questions. If guys have questions, I'm here to help. But that's enough for that. I don't want to go on too long. I do have to keep it relatively short for other appointments, but let's just keep going. So hopefully that helps. All right, so another part of the conversation they brought up was young male syndrome. So typically, if this large amount of men are not having sex, there would be an uprising. They would respond aggressively. They would be looting. They would be causing trouble. They'd be running amok in the streets. but that's not happening. And again, Chris points out that that's likely due to the sedation, that people who have a strong desire for sex will just very easily go out and Google and find whatever they need for free. I love that it has been stated that, well, I guess I shouldn't say I love it, but it's reassuring that that still is not, it doesn't satisfy the need, that there is an underlying need or desire that is not fed by pornography. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, we will continue to evolve through this phase and come back around to meeting that need naturally and in a healthy way. And it was stated that men are being sedated out of their reproductive and status-seeking tendencies. And the question was posed, which is better? And I certainly, Chris used the analogy of boys running through the street and beating up granny. That's not what I would hope for. But I do worry that sedation is actually worse, because our natural tendency to rise up, to become aggressive, to get angry when someone mistreats us, or to become more assertive in pursuit of the thing, the desire, the need that's not being met, would actually be better. And to Chris's point, we are dealing with a mating crisis. I believe they say by 2045, 2050, we will be significantly declining in the world's population. And so this is a concern for all of us collectively, globally, that we want to try to address. The topic of Andrew Tate was brought up. It is very disheartening to me that people have latched onto him so much. That is the type of man that will cause me to desire to be single longer. And in Andrew Tate's defense, I have only watched a couple of his videos. The first one I saw was exposing human trafficking. I thought that was great. I think that's excellent that he would use his platform to do that. But the following videos I saw were all about how he conquered and abandoned multiple women over and over, and how great that is. And that's not something that I'm a proponent of, especially as the mother of 2 little girls. That is the last type of man I would want in my home. So, and again, if I don't know enough about you, Andrew Tate, my apologies. I'm just referencing the videos that I have seen. Jordan Peterson was brought up quite a bit. I absolutely love Jordan Peterson, especially being in the psychology world. His analogies, his storytelling, the sources that he pulls on are very, very helpful. And a beautiful synchronicity about Jordan Peterson was he started the self-authoring project well before I knew of him, and well before I set out on my life purpose mission. I feel very passionately that life purpose is the solution for depression, anxiety, and a whole host of other issues, possibly even the mating crisis. So Jordan is a much better role model and offering much better advice, although he's not as sexy, right? That Andrew Tate offers the looks, money, and status. Not my type, but on what I'm saying here, that boys will look to him and say he's getting women, he has great cars, and he has lots of money. So that would be the person that they would model themselves after. Whereas Jordan Peterson, I would say, offers you a longer, more sustainable strategy for true happiness, fulfillment, and that the things that Andrew Tate are offering will still leave you empty and hollow and searching and seeking. And people don't realize that until they have experienced that. And then your levels of depression and anxiety are even greater, because the things that you thought were going to bring you happiness actually don't. Right. So, yeah. And a really interesting factor that was brought up, quite an itch, but that I didn't realize until it was stated, although I think subconsciously we likely realize this as women, that we are the gatekeepers to evolution. We are the gatekeepers to, obviously, procreation. Men are the protagonists, that women decide who survives through natural selection, and men will do whatever it takes to get it. And that feels kind of cheap when it's said that way, that again, it can't be just about sex. And that was why it was so reassuring to hear them finally say that sex is a sacred act, that allowing another person inside of our body, there's an exchange at so many different levels. And there is there is a cost. There is an emotional and physical and psychological and energetic exchange. And it's not something for us to just go handing out willy-nilly. There is a cost that we offer up something that cannot be returned to us every time we do that. And so for them to say men will do whatever it takes to get it, it feels a little bit cheap if it is only about the conquest and not about the container, right? Not about the bonding and the relationship and what comes of that after the actual act, right? I love that they also mentioned that men will meet whatever criteria women set for sex. And again, this goes back to the issue of having a very low bar, that if they don't want us, this is their quote. If they don't want us, they can go somewhere else to find sex. And that's very true. And that's connecting to what I sort of led with is, if we are tired of the bullshit, if we are tired of being manipulated and used and left to handle everything else after the act of sex, then why would we keep going back? Why would we ask for more of that? And this is how we affect change, is by saying, no, thank you. We're done with that. And that's how we end up with, this is my opinion, right? That we keep lowering and lowering and lowering the bar for sex. Why would men raise their standard? This is how we end up with jerks and man-child, right? I have 3 biological children. When I was married, I had an additional child because that experience was not with a healthy, balanced, healed man, right? We're not going to go into the personal details there. So women are the demand and men are the supply. So we hold a lot of responsibility. We determine the future based on who we choose and what we allow. And it is time for us to, I think we've come to a point where we're starting to say no, and that would be reflected in the men who are not having sex. But we are also responsible for teaching them how, and to teach them how to behave, to teach them how to approach us, and to hold a loving, kind, compassionate, understanding place for them in those moments when they are not performing the way we would like them to perform, or meeting the unspoken expectations, the mind reading, all of those things. So I will save sort of what women can do for men for another video, because I realize this is getting a bit long, but certainly we hold a very important role in determining how the future plays out, right? The media has celebrated toughness and hard-nosed jerks, and men truly believe that that women like bad boys or jerks. And I have heard really sweet, good, kind-hearted men who are excellent husbands and also masculine men say, yeah, but women like men who treat them like crap. And that is, I don't believe true. I don't speak for all women, but I believe that there is, at a subconscious level, a belief in that woman that she can't get any better, that good men don't exist. And there is a level of, or a lack of, self-worth and self-confidence that keeps her from asking for what she deserves and what she's worth. I would say that it's very untrue, likely across the board, but again, I can't speak for all women. There are going to be the small majority of women who like being abused. And again, coming from the psychology perspective and the trauma healing perspective, that likely is unhealed trauma. We don't need to talk about that today. What we do like is a self-confident man who is not desperate. We like a man who embraces who he is and is confident in that. He's not needy, right? We like a man who can be strong and keep us safe and defend us, but we also don't want that aggression directed towards us. And toxic masculinity was another topic that was brought up. Toxic masculinity, I felt that it was sort of confusing, or maybe their definition wasn't the same as mine. We'll put it that way. That when I think of toxic masculinity, I think about when a masculine man feels that his masculinity has to be asserted towards me, that is toxic for me, right? If you are so tough that you don't know how to be soft, that's toxic. If you're so insecure that you have to control me, that's toxic for me. When you need to prove how manly you are at the expense of my well-being, that's how I would define toxic masculinity. I'm all for the guys being guys, go off and do your guy thing. You know, whatever you guys do, I was going to say a few things, but I don't want to overgeneralize. Great, go be boys. Men should be men, right? But when you come home, when you come to me, be respectful, be kind, be compassionate, be concerned about what matters to me. Don't take advantage of me. Don't try to manipulate me or pose as someone that you're not, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's not sustainable. Even if I try to self-sacrifice and I try to overgive and I try to be tolerant and I try to stuff down my needs, at the end of the day, I physically will break down and I cannot live in that environment. So over time, it's not sustainable. And that, I believe, is part of where we're at right now, is that women have come to a point where we just can't tolerate it anymore, no matter how much we have tried. And it was also interesting, they brought up a Cosmopolitan article that was titled "How to Have Sex Without Catching the Feels." This was directed towards women. And I loved that Chris was sort of bothered by this article, that he said that this disembodies the most sacred act a woman could do without or with another person. And I loved to hear him, the passion in his response, that this is a sacred act, and that was frustrating. I would also like to clarify that when you are used for sex all the time, and when the sex culture says that you should be out there having fun, and this is, what fun people do, and to be likable, you should be having sex, which is not something that I subscribe to anymore. Certainly there was a time in my life where I was confused by that. So I can relate to what they're trying to suggest here, is how to participate in society without getting hurt. That we bond so deeply with someone we are intimate with, that there is an emotional cost, a very significant emotional cost for those of us who have an open heart, that you have to learn how to not get attached if you're going to live that life. You have to learn how to not care if you're going to live that life. And when men view sex so flippantly, then we as women, if we want to engage in society and do the things that we believe at that time we have to do to be included, then we're going to have to learn how to not care. We're going to have to learn how to close off our hearts. And I agree, it's not good either way. But the solution is not learning how to have sex without catching the feels. The solution is honoring the sacred act and saving it for someone who deserves it. And I absolutely love that Chris references later on, and maybe it was Tom actually, to become someone who deserves it, to earn it. And you are inherently valuable. You are inherently worthy. You have inherent gifts, talents, and strengths, no matter who you are, man or woman. And your focus initially, instead of going out and trying to conquer and multiple women and add another notch to your headboard, should be on building who you are and your value and worth, and discovering who you are. Go through Jordan Peterson's self-authoring program, work with me to identify your purpose so that you can become worthy of that sacred act. Right. I am the mother, like I said, of two little girls who are 5 and 7. They are absolutely stunningly gorgeous, not just physically, but from a personality standpoint. This is the last thing I would want them to lean into. They absolutely should treat sex as a sacred act, but they should also wait. They should wait, and they should save it for someone who deserves it, who earns it, and who is willing to truly be there and take care of them for as long as they can. Right. So we do bond very intimately with someone, and that is part of the problem. That is why we have to learn how to do it without having the feels, right? And I've come to a point where I just can't. It's not possible. Even though they tell us we can have sex without catching the feels, it's just not possible. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we can disassociate, we can lie to ourselves, but the truth remains the truth, right? Do we want a soft man? Probably not, right? I have grappled with this question as well, because I do need a man who is tender. I absolutely melt in the arms of their vulnerability, but I need a man to be strong, and I need him to be powerful, and I need him to protect me, and I need him to lead. I need him to be stronger than me. And that says a lot, right? What's interesting is Chris brought up stated versus revealed preferences, which I absolutely love, coming from the product development world. I at one point was doing a focus group, and we were asking people what they wanted in a vacuum cleaner. They wanted the most powerful vacuum cleaner on planet Earth, use a jet engine, suck the carpet off the floor. Definitely, that was exactly what they wanted. And then in the same moment, or seconds later, they would turn and say, but I also want it to be super lightweight, like featherweight, so that I can carry it up the stairs and move it around and the cord's not in the way, and da 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 da. You can't have the most powerful engine be light featherweight. It just doesn't work. You have to, the more powerful an engine, the heavier it is. And so stated versus revealed preferences tells us that when they go to the store and they look at either the most powerful vacuum cleaner or the lightest weight vacuum cleaner, they're going to pick something in the middle. They don't want an either or. And this is the same with soft versus masculine. I don't want an either or. I need both. And because we all have masculine and feminine in us, we have to come to realize when to turn it on and when to turn it off. We all have archetypes that we can tap into. And so if you're out and about and we're walking down the street and there's creeps looking at your woman, that's the time to be powerful and strong. That's the time to conquer. That's the time to go to war. But if you're at home with me and I'm having a hard time and I need to just talk it out, and I don't need you to solve the problem, I need you to just listen and tell me I'm going to be okay, and tell me I'm strong, and tell me I got this, and be my cheerleader, that's the moment where I need you to be compassionate and soft. And so it was funny because they referenced a novel that was written about a soft man, and he was very compassionate and loving and agreeable, and that didn't sell, right? And then you look at the contrast of 50 Shades of Grey, and that clearly did very well. I'm not that kind of girl. I like to read for personal development. I like to learn and grow through my reading, so you will never catch me reading that book. Couldn't even go to the video or to the movie, but I have heard that it was about S&M. I know a little bit about it just from hearing what other people have said. And so what I could say, what I would infer from that is that there are many sexually frustrated women. We have come to a place where some of us, I won't say I'm in this place now. I do believe good men exist. And I do believe that in my belief that good man exists, will be honored and privileged with the blessing of a healthy relationship in my life. That being said, many women have had at one point or still have the belief that there are no good men out there, that we have to settle. And there is a little bit of a lure to the you can't get this kind of feeling, right? So my understanding of the man in the gray 50 Shades of Grey story is that he is a little bit elusive. And so there's some intrigue to the mystery, right? But you can have that in a healthy way. It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to hurt you. And that it is really tapping into the frustrated aspect of women, right? And I will say this, that there is something very sexy about a man who takes control in the bedroom. Now, how much you like to be injured is your personal preference, but just that powerful assertion with enough awareness of your sensitive side, right? So it's still the marrying of the strong, powerful masculine with the soft and sensitive. You have to be able to say, okay, I see that you're reaching your breaking point, right? So I don't want to go into too much detail there, but I just want to clarify for any of the men who feel that that book justifies jerk behavior, please be open to a new understanding that is not, we're not looking for an asshole, even though your bad boy tendencies or your assertive masculine tendencies are very attractive, we still want to be taken care of. We still want to be, and I don't just mean taken, and I think that's a really important distinction, because for men, being taken care of means I go to work, I bring home money, I take out the garbage, I do all of the heavy lifting, all the hard stuff that requires muscles. To me, being taken care of, certainly financial is kind of part of it, but I can earn my own as well. Really, it's emotionally taken care of. Certainly there's a physical aspect. I want to know that I'm safe, that if there's a predator, that you're going to be able to overpower them physically. But the strength that I'm most attracted to in you is your strength when you recognize the need for vulnerability, you recognize the need for softness, and you're able to overpower your ego enough to say, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be soft in this place. That's, to me, the most attractive characteristic in any man. And in fact, there was a topic brought up of the incel community, that they believe that they will perpetually be sexless, that they are somehow not attractive enough to ever accomplish it. And I believe that's where the looks, money, and status came in. And for that community, should you ever watch this video, I just wanted to say that the hottest guy on planet Earth could have a really crappy bad attitude and I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. That there is something very, very powerful about a good, kind-hearted man. And I'm going to get into the characteristics here of what I would suggest a good man, the characteristics that I would be attracted to. That if you have some or most of these characteristics, you have a really good chance at finding not just sex, but love. I really want to make this connection from sex to love, to bonding, to intimacy, that there is something so much more powerful than just the act of love. That if I know that you are bonding with me and I know that you are being intimate with me, not only am I going to want to have sex with you far more often, but I am going to have such a deep, compelling desire to take care of you and to pour into you after that moment, because I know I wasn't just used for something. That it doesn't matter how good looking you are or how much money you have or how much status you have. That if you've got heart, if you're a real person, that trumps everything. And there are some really beautiful women, both inside and out, who would love to have a man like that. That I think a lot of men have it backwards. That I'm looking at your inside far more than I am your outside. Certainly, I need attraction. I get that. I tend to be pretty visually driven. I like pretty things, but that's me, and I recognize that I'm at the higher end of that spectrum. Not all women value that, and like I said, you could still be the hottest man on earth, and a bad personality would be the worst turnoff. Right. Okay. So balance is key, right? This is the crux of this whole conversation that I wanted to bring to you. Is too soft is a problem, but so is too hard, right? Be a man's man when you're out with the guys, but show me the strength of vulnerability when we're alone, right? Be soft when we're alone. Care about how I feel, care about what matters to me, honor and respect my needs. Respect my boundaries, stand up, have your own boundaries, right? Don't bulldoze me in the process of showing that you're a masculine man, but don't overgive, because that's not attractive either. I need you to take care of yourself. I can't be responsible. I don't want to be your mother. I want to be your partner. I have very kind, soft, nurturing tendencies, but I don't want to be your mother. I don't need another child. I need a man. Right. And I want to hold space for, I want to nurture, I want to pour into that soft side of you, but I can't do that if you're too needy, if you're not taking care of yourself, or if you're overly masculine and you're too rough, right? I want to build you up. I want to tell you how amazing you are. I want to tell you I appreciate you and I love you, but I need it to be safe to do that. Right? If you're already a jerk, you're going to let that go to your head. If you're too needy and lack boundaries, then that's going to make you more clingy. I can't pour into you if you're not balanced. I hope that helps. Please let me know if there's any questions around that, because I think that is such a critical point, that we as women in this progression towards more healthy relationships, we have had to pull away, we've had to refrain from a lack of meaning, sex that's not meaningful. We've had to focus on taking care of ourselves. We've had to rebalance our masculine and feminine because we had to lean so heavily on our masculine to pull out of that situation. Hopefully that didn't hurt your ears. I just bumped the microphone. But we also have had to reclaim our feminine and not be so masculine, right? So in all of that, we've gotten to know who we are, what we need, what we expect in a relationship, how to meet our own needs, how to have boundaries, how to be healthy. And that is necessary, but on both sides, that we're now asking you collectively, men, to do the same. Right? To get intimate with who you are, to understand your value and worth, to cultivate the gifts and the skills and the purpose that you have been given, to build your confidence so that you know you're valuable with or without me, so that you show up whole and complete. And I love that Tom said that when he finally learned to show up and to be who he was unapologetically without expectation. Like, if you're into me, great. If you're not, no big deal. That's really hot. You don't have to be a jerk to be like that. You can say, this is me, take it or leave it. I am what I am. I love what I am. I am proud of who I'm becoming. And if you want to come along on this journey with me, that would be awesome. I would like that. Great. And if not, I'll see you later. That doesn't reflect on me. Right? So, some of the characteristics that I see as most attractive characteristics, I would say, define a healthy, balanced, masculine man. 1, depth, intelligence, meaningful conversation, passionate pursuit for something that matters. Seek connection over superficial acts of sex, right? Valuing partnership and collaboration more than anything else. Seeking unity. I believe Alex Hormozy was brought up in the conversation somewhere. Not sure where that ended up as far as my notes, but I really like, because I'm an entrepreneur, I follow him. He's highly intelligent. I thank you for everything you do, Alex, should you ever watch this. But I also like his relationship. I love Layla, and I think they like to say they got married for business and not love, partially for the clicks, because I can see how much they do care about each other, and whether or not that developed later doesn't really matter. But I think something so beautiful about their relationship is they have that common goal, that they're both striving towards something that matters. They're making a difference in the world. They're unified in their pursuit. So they're experiencing unity, right? They are unified. I love they reference each other as their ride or die, right? There is such a bond that can happen when you share a similar path. And that's certainly something that I seek, and it's something that I think that creates a depth in the relationship that allows for deeper levels of connection and bonding. Right. Integrity. Thank you, Chris, for bringing this up. The way you explained it was beautiful and amazing. He does reference this very early on in his video. So if you want to know more about his perception of what integrity is, I highly recommend you check out the video. But essentially, just a couple of recaps. He said, no room for deception, games, or wasting time. No, I'm sorry, Chris. I don't know if that's how you said that. That might be my words. For me, integrity is zero room for deception. Right? There's no games. You're not wasting anybody's time by being something that you're not. Integrity, I believe, Chris, the way he described it and the way I've heard it described before, as well as is doing what you say you're going to do, doing what you, how did he put it? Sorry, Chris, I don't recall your exact words, but it's everything to do with walking the talk, right? Living what you say, and doing the right thing when nobody's watching. There we go. We're getting closer to your original words. Okay. For me, it's authenticity or nothing at all. You're either real or you're not. It's truth or a lie. And I understand from a psychology perspective, there's nuances, of this subconscious brain and how it can try to trick you, and how you think you're saying something that's true. You think you say, this is what I believe, but ultimately you believe something else. It's coming from a place of knowing. You're not willfully deceiving anyone. Right? Thank you, Tom, for bringing up communication. Absolutely, 110%. No progress can be made otherwise. Without it, we're throwing darts in the dark. And I think, Chris, you mentioned in a different video that men are very different from women, very different from women. We speak different languages. We live different lives. It's almost as if we live in two different worlds. So for us to be expected to understand what a man needs is very, very difficult. Even when a man says, I need to be respected and I need to be appreciated for the support I offer, right? What does respect mean for each man? It's different. How do I show you respect, right? And I've dug into some of these things, and I understand that it's conversation that we have to have with each individual person, because we all have different preferences and love languages and things of that nature. But more conversation is needed, both at the partner level, right, one-to-one with our partner, but also at the collective level, that even when we use the word support, that can mean something so much different for a woman than it does a man. So more communication is really going to open doors for both sides, and to heal this problem that we're all dealing with, right? I love that Tom says you must love and support a woman to make her feel beautiful. It was perfectly said. Could not agree more, that it's not about aesthetics necessarily. Yes, I want to feel like I look good because I know you're driven by visuals. But most of all, I want to know that you see me as a beautiful person. You see my heart, you know me, you see me, and you love me for me, that I'm irreplaceable. And that's a bit of a nuance to what Tom was saying there. I also really, really liked that Chris brought up physical fitness, and I loved the way that he said this, that it's a sign of conscientiousness, industriousness, hard work, commitment, discipline, being dependable and accountable. Absolutely 110%, 1,000% on this one. I very much am attracted to a man who takes care of himself physically, both from a diet perspective as well as a fitness perspective. One, because I'm driven towards that, as these are personal preferences, things I enjoy in my life. Yes, I love a big, strong man, but also I can see dedication, I can see discipline, I can see hard work, I can see commitment in the responses that your body displays. So that very much is a key. And from a personal development, from a psychology standpoint, from a mental health standpoint, there are so many benefits to fitness. Even being an entrepreneur, there's a reason why most entrepreneurs are also biohackers. The benefits are endless when it comes to fitness. So cannot recommend this one enough. It was interesting because they talked about a man needs to go to war or battle. And so I wanted to include this because I want to honor your needs, right? What you need naturally is important. And I wanted to offer some opportunities to use this tendency in a way that serves both people in the relationship. And it was brought up that, men used to go to war, they used to hunt, and that you could use that tendency in those ways, but now that doesn't exist. So how can you go to war? Well, some thoughts might be that you could go to war for a relationship, right? It is a battle out there. You will be tempted day in and day out. There's free porn 2-3 clicks away on Google. Go to battle for our relationship. Go to battle for our family. And I love that Chris and in his interview with David Goggins, again, highly recommend that. Very good video as well. He recommends to conquer oneself. And again, this speaks to finding your purpose and fully self-actualizing. Go to war with yourself. I believe Chris quoted David Goggins saying, when you go to war with yourself, you find peace. Men need to conquer. So let's conquer themselves. Let's conquer ourselves. All of us, really. This is, if you ask me, one of the points, one of the reasons for being here is to conquer ourselves, to fully self-actualize through an understanding and through discipline and all these other things that we just talked about. The term rage against the machine came to mind as well, because our external environment is not trying to help us self-actualize. If anything, it is causing atrophy, right? It's causing us to entropy. And so we need to, I think Chris says, locally reverse entropy, which is beautiful and amazing. Absolutely. They also recommended that men have a desire for forward action. Again, I will reference purpose. Do something with your life. Every single person is unique and different with different talents and capabilities. for a reason. You are perfectly imperfect for your purpose. You are not made by accident. There's a reason you have those gifts, and you will always feel like something is missing. And crazy enough, your purpose is your path to bonding, intimacy, love, and sex, right? Yes, be ambitious, create something of value, but also, again, remain balanced. Be at the dinner table, be home for family time, take me out, show me you're still with me. That yes, I'm a highly driven woman. I am an entrepreneur. I love business, but I also love my family, and I also want to love my husband. And we all need that balance. We can't be too masculine, too business driven, or too family oriented. We have to have that healthy balance. Women want a man that they can respect and admire, and it comes through your own confidence, which comes through your own accomplishments, right? Confidence comes through competence. So as you practice, as you get better, as you evolve, as you self-actualize, as you get stronger, as you rise up in who you are capable to be, we will see you as more and more attractive. Be worthy of the moment of sex. Here's that note that I was referencing earlier. Really be somebody who deserves it. Be worthy of it. And I love that they said, I can't remember who, give a man a purpose and the ability to achieve it, and they will crawl over broken glass with a smile. I do recall that was Chris. This is your purpose, guys. Become who you were made to be, and you will be so attractive that they won't be able to stay away from you. There is nothing more attractive in my eyes than a man who is conquering himself, because that means he gets to show up 100% for me too. Right? Women date across or up. I find this to be very true, at least in my own personal experience. I said, but a hot and sexy man who is a jerk holds no water to a man who is decent looking, but holds balance, strength, and vulnerability. Right? So again, yes, there's some statistics. I think Chris said that divorce rate is higher for women who out-earn men, and they are 50% more likely to need erectile dysfunction medication when the woman out-earns the man. So I'm sure there is something to that, but I would say there's always exceptions to the rule. And again, if you are a good person and you take care of your woman, you stand a good chance to be one of the exceptions to those averages. Right? A woman needs to be taught how to treat a man. So I would say that this is a conversation that we need to open up, not just here on this channel, ideally, and many other channels. I hope that you all comment your thoughts and feelings about this. Like I mentioned earlier, being the mother of a son. And I remember the day where I looked at him and I thought, you are not as rough and tough as they always told me men were. I was genuinely shocked and surprised at how soft my son was. And it really opened my eyes to how difficult it must be for men, that we see them as the protagonist, we see them as the aggressor, we see them as maybe even the perpetrator in some cases, and we treat them as such, right? That we expect so much of them, and we give very little support or understanding because we have been taught that they're tough, they're smart, they're capable, they're strong. This is why they always out earn us, and this is why they're always, at the top levels of CEO statistics and things of that nature. I think there's an assumption they don't need my softness, they don't need me, they don't care about me, they use me and throw me away. So why would I be soft and kind in return? And it's kind of a chicken or egg scenario. I can see that here. But I do think that collectively, the male community needs more softness, more understanding, more love, more compassion from women than we have historically understood, right? I think it would be very helpful for us to have general guidelines relative to general tendencies. I don't think that we have fully understood. I don't think either side has fully understood. And so I'm not about putting people in boxes necessarily, but some general guidelines would be helpful. Again, I mentioned this earlier. I do think we need to negotiate the specifics of the relationship because that's going to be different for each person. And also role models are possibly the most important key. Not understanding what good looks like is why we're having this conversation. I do agree we should not ask the genders to ignore their innate abilities to try to create strength in something that they don't do naturally. There are plenty of studies that have shown that your efforts are wasted if you spend all of your time trying to fix your flaws versus the progress that you will make if you lean on your strengths. And so I think this applies here. And I think Chris used the example of a woman in an office who is highly emotionally intelligent and capable of understanding when someone needs something or when they're struggling with something, and learning to leverage innate abilities. This again goes back to my mission with helping people step into their purpose and being able to study your purpose early on, right? Allowing kids and ideally everyone eventually to fully leverage their gifts, their innate talents, their genetic blueprint, right? The purpose that they were given. Genetic predisposition can be leveraged. And I think that's something that is, it's kind of like money left on the table right now, that we're not tapping into that resource. Chris felt that we needed to repedestalize motherhood. And to some degree, I would appreciate that sentiment. And I think this is going to be very specific to each woman that you speak to. For me, I was left to handle everything on my own, and that was a problem. And I think in a different video, it was mentioned that, you know, guys do their guy thing. They engage with the woman a little bit, and then they go off and they do their guy thing. Well, for me, that was part of the problem. I needed the support. And I think that likely comes from a lack of community. They say it takes a village to raise children. It truly does, but we don't have the village anymore. We're on our own. And if you are a career woman, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a working woman, to have to bear the weight of taking care of everything for the family and the career, it's too much. It's too much to have to do alone. And if I'm married to a partner, where are they in this? Now, I recognize that not all men are like that, and that many women have supportive partners who are showing up. But I just want to emphasize, one, thank you to those of you who do. And two, please be aware of how necessary you are to those who either don't or don't have children yet, because it is too much for one person, and they will crack, and it will cause a rift in the relationship, and you will have less sex, and you will wonder why things are declining, and why your wife is gaining weight, and why she's drinking too much wine, and why she's crabby all the time, and why she's tired all the time, and why she always has a headache when you want to do it, right? So the partnership is so critical here, that if we were not doing it all alone, if we had more resources, whether from a community, from the village, from the, I don't want to lean on the government, but you know, in other countries, they do have more support, government provided support, which is why I say that. But just recognizing that motherhood is very, very challenging, and to expect, I mean, some women can be with the kids all day and all night and be perfectly happy. Some women are built for that. I have seen that that is fewer and far between than those of us who need breaks, who need support. And so, yes, certainly repedestalizing motherhood would be amazing. I would love to be appreciated for the things that we do. I don't think any of us would say, no, don't do that. I think that there's also more that we can do in the way of support and networking of systems to help relieve the burden and the pressure of having to do it all alone. Chris shared some really sad statistics that of all women who are childless, 80% wish they had kids. And I think that is really, really sad. Partially that is, as they referenced, women waiting until they're older. But again, it is, okay, so if you look at this, we wouldn't have to wait until we're older if we had the network to support us, if we didn't have to carry the full weight on and burden on our own, that you can still have a life if you have a support network. So just a thought there. Other statistics, 50% of childless, or no, 50% of women at 30 are childless, which is, I think, the first time ever, as well as 51% have children outside of unions or marriages. And again, that, you know, speaks to everything that we've discussed so far. So we may need to reconsider how we see men and why they want what they want. right? We may need to reconsider what it means to make them feel valued and appreciated and respected in order to make the guy feel powerful, or to appreciate the sacredness of sex in order to start reversing these trends, so that they are more committed, so that they are more invested, so that they are more respectful and honoring of that sacred act. So again, we'll save that for another video. That's just some brainstorming there. I love that it was stated, give a man a purpose and the ability to achieve it, and he will crawl over glass with a broken smile. Obviously, I put that in there twice, but I'm glad I did by accident, because it is so amazing. And I have seen this. That, again, another thing I was shocked when I discovered was men want to make us happy. I was like, what, really? It doesn't seem like it. Because it seems like you do all of the things that we are asking you not to do, and yet you tell us that you want to make us happy. But I can see where, efforts are made and misunderstood and not received well, not appreciated, not respected. So then there's sort of a feeling of futility. And so then they give up and say, well, why even try? And then we're even, less enthused, and it's a vicious cycle. I absolutely love that Tom says he gets so much from bonding with his wife. And that's really what we all need. That's what we're all looking for. That is the solution, is learning how to bond and seeing the value in that bond. I believe it was said that we should complement each other. Compatriots, not competitors, which definitely is Chris with the European accent. Yeah, we're supposed to work together. And that made me think of Alex and Layla Hormozy. And then finally, I think both men agree that we should treat our bodies well and take care of the spirit. It is experience both men and women have on the other side of the nightclub life, where they desire a committed relationship with someone, and to stay in respect with each other. So I think Chris was a nightclub promoter for a long time, and got to see firsthand the community, the culture that I was speaking to earlier, where you have to engage in this frequent sex to be part of the community, to be considered having fun or one of the group, and you would be ostracized otherwise. And it was really nice to hear him say that real men look for real meaning eventually, right? It just takes time, which, as we know, that's why some of us wait until later in life, because the men have actually matured to that point. But yeah, so that's enough. I know this is a really long video, much longer than I typically do, but I absolutely, absolutely love this topic. I was so honored and excited to hear that other people are asking these questions too. And so that means that we are in a beautiful blank slate moment where we get to redefine what good looks like, and having this conversation more and more, and starting to model and emulate as leaders for the young that are growing up now. What good looks like will really help to shift and change this trajectory. All right. I love you, my friends. I will see you on the next video. Make sure that you share this with somebody who could benefit. Do comment below. Please let me know. Is there anything you disagree with? Is there anything you agree with? What would you add to the conversation? What do men need to know from the women out there about what you are looking for? And guys, if there's anything that I have said that's wrong, or that you find confusing or would like more clarity on, please do comment below as well. I will see you guys on the next video. Namaste.